Well, you probably know the drill by now. One driving vid, multiple shed vids, because we always tend to wreck something. So that's the case. If you watched last week's video, you see we done a little bit of damage to the front left shock, which I got to fix. And like I ripped the flare off and something else. Throttle gets stuck partially open and the idle's real high. So a couple of small things to fix, but the main thing that we're doing today is doing some winch upgrades. So I have got some new batteries to go in. We'll get into that soon. So 2 new batteries to go in the back. I've got another run of cable to do for the power, because at the moment this is the main power and then it just links to the next solenoid. So I've got to run a second power to that solenoid, a second isolator. So I've got another one of the red winch isolators I've got to put in. I've got to run another earth somewhere. And then that should make the winch work a bit better, because I did use it in the last video and it seemed to work all right. But the night before I had the motors off, and the winch motors don't look too good on the inside. So the motors that are on it are they're Bow 2 motors. They're the original motors that came on this winch. And this is like a Hornet 1, so this is probably probably 9 years old, I suppose. Somewhere around 10 years old, what are we? Oh, maybe not that old, maybe 8 years old. So, and the motors have been through a fair bit of work. And yeah, they just look a bit worn out on the inside. So I'm going to update the batteries and the winch power and that, and just see what that does. And then eventually I might have to change out these motors, but we'll see what happens from there. I'm still waiting for the manifold for this, unfortunately. That's been a massive hold up, huge hold up actually. I'm kind of glad that Wild Dog's been postponed, not that I am, but I am in a way, because if Wild Dog was still going ahead, I would be in some serious trouble here. I actually don't know what I would do, and it would end up costing me a lot more money to do things twice to be able to race it. So yeah, it's like, it was supposed to be the week of the 23rd of August, and like we're now nearly halfway through September and I still haven't seen it. So unfortunately, yeah, hopefully that comes really soon, because that's becoming a pain. Anyway, hopefully that's on the road soon. So yeah, I'm going to tinker with this bloody throttle. I don't know why it's done, it's never done it. I'll tinker with that, and then we'll get stuck into the batteries. I'll show you what batteries we're using, get them in, mount the other isolator, run another run of cable, and then yeah, we'll fix this bloody shock. Well, I'm just stripping apart what's going on in the back here. It is bloody messy right now. I don't know if I'm 100% happy with everything that's going on back here. There's just a lot of crap behind here, and it just doesn't look good. So I don't know, I might change a few things up eventually. It still is like this because I still haven't decided on how I should finish all this off in here. So that's why it's still a bit of a mess. But I've got a few ideas about what I might do in here. But for now, it's just staying the way it is. This was the earth cable, but that's now the second isolator cable, which our second solenoid winch motor cable, I should say. And then I'll put that to a second isolator somewhere. And then I've got to run a new earth. So that's what I'll be running straight from the battery, straight through with these ones, all the way down to the front and onto the earth bar I've got at the front. So, and yeah, and I've got to change the battery. So I'll actually show you what battery I'm using now. All right, so this is what battery we're using. It's a Full River HC110. It's similar specs to the Odyssey 2150s, I think they are. We were actually going to use Odysseys, but the wait time for Odysseys was like months, and we could get these pretty, like within 2 weeks we got them or something. And these are like probably a couple $100 cheaper than the Odysseys. So they still are pretty dear, and they're bloody heavy. They're like 34 kilos or something. So they're about 5 or 6 kilos heavier than the Optima, which the extra weight's not that good, but the specs of the battery are good. So 110 amp hour, which I don't really care about because they're a winch battery, and 1100 cranking amps is what I'm worried about. So it's a lot of cranking amps. They have this other rating, the Pulse Hot cranking amps, 2200 cranking amps. So pretty powerful battery. I want to actually see how good they are. So they're the biggest battery I could find in like a 31 frame battery, 31 group battery. So similar size to like your Optima D31s, the 31 1000s I've got in the race car. So if you've got a battery tray to suit one of them batteries, like an Optima D31 or something like that, these should just fit in there. So if you're comparing them to the Optima as well, the Optimas I've got in there are, yeah, the D31Ms, D31s, yellow tops are the same specs. They're 900 cranking amps and 75 amp hours. So like, yeah, heap more amp hours and an extra 200 cranking amps. Times that by 2, and yeah, so I've got an extra 400 cranking amps running these batteries, like if you add them both up. So it's a fair bit more power. Honestly, which I'm not going to do, but I'd like to see 4 of these in the race car and see how much power they get to the winch. But yeah, these should power it up nicely. 2 should be enough, hopefully, but that's something I'm going to test. Well, let's get them in. I'll throw these on a time lapse. Alright, well, it fits. It is tight, because obviously the Optimas are narrow, they're smaller underneath than they are on the top. So they're a little bit tight, but they do fit in the tray alright. The top tray fits on, but what I'll do is probably mount the other isolator first. So I'm not, if I have to weld anything, I'm not welding next to the batteries while they're out. So yeah, mount the isolator and then I can throw the batteries in. I'm having trouble finding a spot to mount the other isolator because I'm limited by the length of this, because I'm not running another one of these because that cable is dear as poison. So I'm not running another one just to gain like an extra couple hundred mil. So I'm limited to this length, and it would be good to mount them together, but I just can't. So I think somewhere here is where it's going to have to go, and then I can run the power cable around into it, and then the other earth will come through here and straight to the battery. So bit of it's hard to get it to look good. There's just crap going everywhere in there and it really annoys me, but I'll get it happening and then clean it up one day. All right, so it's the next day. I've done a little bit of tinkering. I have run this earth all the way to the front. I've got a hole in the floor. Now, I needed one of these cable glands. So they're already what I've got in there, and they just screw through the floor and allow you to run a cable through and offer like a waterproof seal on getting your cable through. So they're pretty good, but I went and got some after work and they seemed to be too small, and the next size up they had was way too big. So that's kind of a bummer because I need a cable gland, because once you put the cable lug on the cable, it will not fit through the gland. So I can't really put a lug on that until I get the gland in there. Otherwise I've got to cut the lug back off to get a gland in there and then put a lug back on it. So I've got to do some more looking around at that, but these are good. This would probably suit the 70mm cable or 95, but 120 is not going through that. So I did wire it up the front here though. As you can see, yeah, 2 pails and an earth. The general rule is you're supposed to have the same earths as powers, and obviously I don't. So I've got to figure something out here, whether I earth that to the chassis, earth that winch bar to the chassis, and then the rear batteries to the body, and earth it all together, which should overcome that problem. So this is a problem over the shock. The end pulled off it. You can see that's loose. all the threads damaged there, if it'll focus. All the threads damaged, and it pulled the thread out of this aluminium end. So, like I said, that's what happens when you don't run limit straps and it's just constantly topping out on the shock. Something will let go. I'm just glad that they're just cheap shocks, and it wasn't like one of my good ones, which the reason the limit strap didn't work is because the limit strap's too long for this shock, because this shock's a lot shorter. Even though it's a 10-inch travel, it's still shorter than the Pro Fender bypass shock. So hopefully the other bypass shock will be here in like a month or so, and I can not have this issue again. But I have managed to chase up a 2-inch shorter limit strap. So I'll put that in when I fix this, which is what I've been doing. So lucky I had the other 10-inch one, and all I did was just swap the shafts out, swap the valving over, put it back together, put some oil in it, and then gassed it up, and it's right to go back in. So lucky I have spares. They're cheap enough to have spares, and like these were out of the race car anyway, so they were just sitting over there. At least I'm somewhat using them. But anyway, I'll get this in now. I'll just probably forklift the front of the car up and get it in. So I'll probably throw these on a time lapse. All right, well that's job done. So got a couple inch shorter limit strap, and then I could just adjust the clevis. So we won't be topping this one out. So hopefully we don't have this same problem. But in saying that, yeah, hopefully the other bypass shock is here soon. So then all these problems will be gone. So it's in here, it'll do the job. It'll get us back on the tracks. This weekend we're going camping, and then next weekend's a long weekend, so I might even go out again, I don't know. And I don't think I mentioned it in the other video, but the rear shocks, the Superior 2.5s, bloody brilliant. I cannot believe the difference in them. So they're definitely worthwhile investment. They are pretty dear first off, but yeah, they are unreal. So, and also having the option to choose light vehicle valving and heavy vehicle valving when you buy them is a massive bonus. So if you are looking for shocks and you want to spend that little bit extra money, the Superior 2.5s all go. So I'm looking forward to see how long they last. But yeah, for now they are mint. And this weekend coming, it'll be loaded full of camping gear. So that'll be another good test for them. Well, I guess I'll wrap this up here. The only thing I gotta do is just get a cable gland and put a quick lug on that earth cable, and then the winch will be working, but you don't need to see that. And probably in the next driving video, we should be doing some tracks where we get to test the winch. So that'll be a real test of the fresh batteries, the extra cable, the extra isolator. If it still doesn't perform like it should, like I said, I know the motor's a crook, but if it still doesn't perform the way it should, then I guess in the future I'll look at updating these motors. There are, yeah, like I said, they're about 8 or 9 years old, so they're probably due for a swap over anyway. But we'll see how we go on the weekend. So if you like the video, all the normal stuff, like, comment, and subscribe. Yeah, next one will be a driving video, potentially the one after that too. And hopefully you get the manifold for this soon. So we'll see you then.